18th Microcredit Summit here in Abu Dhabi, and we'll be continuing with our interview series on youth financial services as part of the Global Money Week this week here from March 14th to the 18th. And I have a pleasure to be interviewing Miss Mariella Greco from Plan International. We're very happy that we were able to have you join us today to talk a little bit about sort of Plan's work with youth financial services. And I guess my first question would be, why does Plan prioritize youth financial services? Why did youth financial inclusion become such an important issue for Plan International?
Okay. Well, thank you, Jared, and happy Global Money Week as well.
Yeah, right.
Plan International, has been for almost 80 years working with children and adolescents around the world. Today we're in 70 countries, and we work integrated development programs. Participation is a big principle in everything that we do, as well as child protection and education and a number of other things. But one of the things that we've also decided in recent years to include is financial inclusion. You might think, well, why? Are we trying to push on loans and those types of services to kids? That's not the point. The point is that children from a very young age need to understand also some of the financial principles, some of the things that are going on in their life that affect them. Some of the experiences that we've had, for example, in Peru, we started to work on financial education in primary school and then in secondary school. And one of the surprising things, even surprising for us, is that it prevented dropouts. It actually was able to stem dropouts from happening, because children who maybe don't always think that the curriculum that they're receiving in the classroom is relevant to their life, all of a sudden found, well, this is important for me. Money is important for me. How to do a budget, how to save for what it is that I want to do and to buy, and even to help their families in certain difficult situations.
Well, Mariella, it's very interesting, and I wonder if you could maybe share a little bit more about what you believe to be most particularly innovative about Plan's approach to serving youth with financial services or building that financial capability. What do you feel is very innovative about Plan's approach to this?
Well, one of the things that we've done is, of course, we're always in the school, right? Plan, one of our key places where we work is in the school, and working with the school authorities to try to help them incorporate it into their curriculum. The other thing is trying to use real life examples on how it is that you can put those financial skills to use, like creating small businesses in the school environment. But also then we expanded out to outside of the school, kids that maybe had already dropped out, where it wasn't, let's say, so reasonable or feasible to think that they'd be able to get back inside a formal education type of environment, but bringing them in on some of these side programs to how to create a small business, how to save, because many of these kids are already working, right? But they don't necessarily have those skills. How to understand things like interest rates. I mean, this is one of the big problems that we're facing in Latin America, is that there is credit available, but not necessarily from responsible lenders. And so from a very young age, people are getting indebted. And so how do you understand those interest rates? What looks like a really good deal maybe isn't such a good deal after all, no?
Right. No, and that's interesting. And as you mentioned, sort of the work with schools as being a very important kind of partnership that you have in this sort of work. I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit, maybe some other very strategic collaborations you've made with Plan to really advance this work, or make it a little more effective, your work with youth in this space?
A lot of times we hear that it's difficult to work with the government. For Plan, we always have to work with the government. I mean, the duty bearer has the key responsibility in ensuring people's rights are fulfilled, so that's a natural fit for us. But sometimes if you find resistance, it's not necessarily because they don't want to, it's just because they're so overwhelmed with how to do this. So we started, in one example, a small pilot in 10 schools, and we did it with the Ministry of Education while they were watching. They were so impressed and so happy with the methodology that they themselves expanded it to 130 schools at a local level. And then at national level, the authorities were so happy with it that they've decided to incorporate it into their national curriculum. Other strategic partners, the central bank. The central banks now more and more have a mandate about financial education. For these reasons that I had explained before, people don't always understand things like interest rates or those types of things. And even the Ministry of Labor in some cases, because Plan works on youth entrepreneurial skills and youth employment, and having financial education with these young people from 14 years to 25 years in our case is very important, because if they are going to have successful businesses, they need to have those skills from a very early age.
I completely agree with you, and I guess, looking at some of the work you're currently doing and wanting to bring it back to this summit, and the theme of this summit is really looking at innovative frontiers in financial inclusion. And I guess, what would you see from your work, particularly in Latin America, let's say, what do you really see as those important frontier innovations in youth financial inclusion in Latin America? That's your work.
Well, one is starting younger. I think that's one of the key things that's important. This Microcredit Summit campaign talks a lot about the SDG goal of eradicating extreme poverty by 2030. Well, if we want to do that, what we need to make sure is that in 15 years and 14 years that we don't have a new group of extreme poor, as children today, adolescents today, end up reaching adulthood back then. So we need to start early. And don't worry that you might think it's too early for your 5-year-old to understand, concepts of how much it costs to buy a piece of gum, or how much it costs to save up for that really special toy that they might want. I think it's one of the key things, and one of the things that's really quite gratifying and encouraging in Latin America is that we are seeing greater collaboration from ministries of education, and even presidents of central banks, like in Paraguay, who are taking this to heart and really seeing that it's important to be committed to this from a very young age.
Right, and we're starting to see more and more of kind of governments getting on board with this initiative, which is very encouraging in the region. And I guess, looking particularly at PLAN and your work in Latin America, what sort of future commitments or future plans would you like to share maybe at this stage? What do you see would be the next 5 years of work for PLAN in this space?
Well, the whole area of youth economic empowerment and youth economic solutions is huge for us. We are taking that on in a big way in many countries in Latin America and around the world. So all I see is that this is an area of great growth for us. And of course, as a key part of all of that is financial inclusion and education. So we're going to be there all the way.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, Mariella, for your time. I really appreciate you doing this interview with us and shining a spotlight on this issue, and we wish PLAN all the best as you continue to work very effectively in this area. So thank you.